As Iran counts down the launch of its first nuclear power reactor, it's warned that any attack would receive a serious riposte. It comes after a former US ambassador to the UN said Israel had only days to act against the reactor. On Saturday, a shipment of nuclear fuel is due to be loaded into the plant's core. The US and Israel have regularly refused to rule out an attack against Iran to stop its controversial nuclear program. But President Ahmadinejad insists his country simply wants nuclear power to produce electricity. John Bolton, a former US envoy to the UN, has warned that Israel only has 8 days to launch a military strike against the Bushehr facility. He said any attack afterwards would spread radiation affecting civilians, but he added he thought Israel had already missed its chance. The West has passed several rounds of sanctions against Iran over its nuclear program. But fears that the Bushehr project could help Iran develop a nuclear weapon were lessened when Russia, which helped build it, reached agreement with Tehran obliging it to return spent fuel. Iran has warned Western countries not to interfere in the case of a woman originally sentenced to death by stoning for committing adultery. Last week, Iranian TV broadcast these pictures, purportedly showing Sakineh mohamadi ashtiyani admitting having an extramarital affair and to complicity in her husband's killing. A foreign ministry spokesman in Tehran says the furore over the case has been stoked by the West to damage Iran. The stoning sentence has been suspended pending a review. In the West, the case has generated an outcry with numerous protests such as this one in London last month. Since then, the alleged confession's been greeted with scepticism and alarm. Ashtiyani's lawyer fled to Norway, claiming his client had been tortured beforehand. The Iranian authorities have been accused of adding the accusations relating to murder, which it's feared could pave the way for the woman to be hanged. President Ahmadinejad has rejected an offer by Brazilian President Lula, with whom he has good relations, to grant Ashtiyani asylum.
Iraq has been rocked by one of its bloodiest attacks in weeks, in the midst of a political crisis following the country's inconclusive election. At least 59 people were killed when a suicide bomber blew himself up in the capital, Baghdad. More than 100 were also caught in the blast, which ripped through an army recruitment centre near to a main bus station in the city. The bombing comes only a day after talks to form a coalition government between Iraq's two main political parties fell apart. It also comes as the US prepares to pull 50,000 combat troops out of the country later this month. Those with serious injuries were rushed to local hospitals. One Iraqi army source has said there may have been 2 suicide bombers, a hallmark of Sunni Islamist al-Qaeda and its local affiliates. A generous gesture or blood money? Opinion is divided after former British Prime Minister Tony Blair announced he's to give the entire profits from his upcoming memoirs to injured war veterans. Despite some questioning his motives, the British Legion are delighted.
Mr Blair's contribution will change people's lives. Whatever else we might say, there's no question of Tony Blair's, I think, integrity and determination actually to put the proceeds, the full proceeds of his book, to very good charitable use.
But for many, Blair's reputation remains tainted by his decision to commit British troops into the hellfire of Iraq, even though he's already reportedly handed over his advance of €5.5 million. Anti-war campaigners have also said they plan to protest at the biography's launch, arguing the book should be thrown at the former Prime Minister for leading Britain into war.
Former Italian President Francesco Cossiga, seen here in an interview with Euronews earlier this year, has died. The 82-year-old former Christian Democrat leader, who had also held the office of Prime Minister, had been taken ill earlier this week. The sometimes controversial politician was admitted to hospital in Rome on Monday. He was suffering from severe respiratory problems and his condition worsened in the last 24 hours. Born in Sardinia, he was first elected to Parliament in 1958. In 1985, he was sworn in as the Italian Republic's 8th head of state, a post he held for 7 years. He'd been the Interior Minister, the youngest in his country's history, but resigned when his party chairman, Aldo Moro, was kidnapped and subsequently murdered. He automatically became a life senator. In November 2006, he resigned from his position. It was, however, rejected by a vote of the Senate.
An investigation's underway into an explosion and fire at a Romanian maternity ward on Monday that killed 4 newborn babies and severely injured 7 others. Officials have said that an electrical fault in the air conditioning system at the hospital in Bucharest was to blame. The surviving infants have been transferred to other hospitals. Just days old, some are said to be in a critical condition, suffering from 70 to 80% burns.
Makeshift medical treatment for the people of Pakistan. It is a scene repeated throughout the country, still reeling from the devastating floods, still waiting for vital life-saving aid. Now the World Bank has responded, announcing it will make available immediately a loan of almost 700 million euros. Those funds for the relief operation come 48 hours after the UN Secretary-General's appeal and will be raised as the bank redirects monies and changes its funding priorities. International agencies are continuing to stress the risk of disease. Swimming in the waters, which have already claimed the lives of an estimated 1,600 people, is one of the latest threats. The UN fear up to 3.5 million children are at risk from disease. Former Israeli soldier Eden Abergil poses beside Palestinian prisoners. The controversial image was among 26 photographs she posted on her Facebook page. The pictures are in an album called The Best Days of My Life and have prompted international outrage across the political spectrum. Israeli army officials have condemned her behavior as shameful and said they would investigate the matter further.
The IDF strongly condemns these disgraceful photos. They in no way reflect the spirit of the IDF, our ethical standard to which we all aspire. If she were in active duty, I would imagine that she would be court-martialed right away.
Danger on France's Côte d'Azur. This is Cannes-sur-Mer, soaked in sunshine, a glamorous resort that hosts a world-famous film festival. On Monday, panic gripped the beach as it seemed one of the stars of a box office success from the 80s had dropped by, Jaws. We thought we saw a fin, so we took the boat to go and check it out, and close up we really could see a fin. No one was taking any chances. 3 beaches were shut. Could the mysterious fin really spell danger? There are 25 known species of sharks in the Mediterranean, the smallest of which is a dogfish shark that measures 60 centimeters, and the biggest is the pilgrim shark that can reach 14 meters. Generally, they rarely approach the coast because they live in the deep. 24 hours later, the beaches have reopened, as briefly, once again, a shark had made the headlines in Cannes.
It's exactly 50 years ago today that a world music phenomenon was arguably born. The band, of course, was the Beatles. The place, Hamburg. 5 little-known musicians had travelled from Liverpool to hone their skills and lay the foundations for what would become the planet's most successful pop group. The German city is often regarded as the Beatles' apprenticeship. As John Lennon put it, he might have been born in Liverpool, but grew up in Hamburg. I never needed anybody's help in any way. The group would later become the Fab Four, but during 2.5 years they would perform nearly 300 gigs along the North German city's legendary Reeperbahn at places like the Indra, Kaiserkeller and Star Club. 50 years later, the city is also paying tribute to the group's impact on its music scene. Cover band Bambino, named after the Beatles' infamous first accommodation in Hamburg and comprising internationally renowned artists, is set to perform 4 separate gigs in the city.
The world's largest retailer, Wal Mart, says sales fell at its stores in the US for the 5th straight quarter. It was, however, able to post a higher than expected quarterly profit, the equivalent of 2.8 billion euros, and raise its full-year forecast. That was due to cost cuts and improved sales at its shops outside the US. A like-for-like comparison with stores that were open 1 year ago showed US sales fell 1.8%. And Walmart said that decline is likely to continue in the 3rd quarter. It plans to further focus on cutting expenses to help boost earnings this year. But retail industry analysts question how much longer the company can count on cost cuts to do that, particularly with US consumers wary of spending.
Okay.
As the hot spell extends across the Gulf, we'll still make sure you feel refreshed.
A wonderful mixture of Persian art and cutting-edge technology. An astonishing combination of noble designs and colors. Yet another masterpiece from the land of the carpet. It's a dream come true. Imagination you can touch. Setare Kabir Carpet.